Hello, hello. How are you guys?
How you doing?
Hey.
Good morning.
Good. Brad, how's your back feeling?
Oh, good.
Good.
I tweaked my back. Too much mountain biking.
Yeah. You should see Brad go jump over those jumps. He gets like
The-
10 foot of air.
Yeah, 10 inches.
Actually, you
there.
got a pretty mean bunny hop.
Oh, do I? Okay, I'm working on it.
I mean, that doesn't sound so cool.
I got a mean bunny hop.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we used to call it back in the day.
Yeah.
Is that like when you stand on the bike and you hop it?
Yeah, when you jump.
Just like
you
pull it
lift-
up and
You
both
lift the
tires
bike
go.
up.
Okay, straight. Okay, too.
Every so often you got to bunny hop a buffalo or
like
something.
a curb
You
or
need
something
to-
like that.
Yeah.
Last time I tried that, it flipped me. I tried to bunny hop a curb. Like
You
it
went-
was like
I wish
like
I had that on TikTok.
No, it was like 6 months ago, and people were laughing. It was so embarrassing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you go over the handlebars or?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's called an
Seriously?
endo.
It was super slow. Like
Indo.
I was going like so slow, and like I'm just gonna hop the front tire over this curb, and it's like, when someone, what movie is it where the guy tries to dunk a basketball and he hits the rim and he just falls backwards? It was exactly like that.
Oh man.
It was the bike version of that.
Oh man.
What was it? The fail TV or something like that?
Yeah,
That
I probably
would've
could have
good
been
one.
on that.
Well, I'm working on my the drops, where there's a lot of drops now with mountain biking where there's 6 foot, like just completely drop off, where you have to just. So I think maybe the drops have shocked my back a little bit more.
Oh, where you're dropping 6 feet at a time, like off a.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, like there's drops, like wooden
Yeah,
drops
I
that just
gotcha.
drop off, and so
I'm not up with the lingo.
yeah. Anyways, I'm here. My
Sorry.
back's good. Yeah, these chairs are pretty good for my back.
These chairs are horrible.
Good.
Yeah.
So you guys, we're well into January. How are you guys feeling?
I'm feeling. I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fasting right now.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about
Like-
that.
Straight and the only reason I mention that is because you ask how I feel. The first few days were absolutely horrible, and then for anyone who hasn't done it, it's amazing. But you start to feel really, really great. So
But you got your bulletproof coffee, so.
I'm doing liquids, and one of my liquids is a bulletproof coffee.
Nice.
So
Shout
I
out to
don't know.
bulletproof coffee.
I don't know if anyone Daniel didn't have bulletproof coffee, but
For those that don't know, that's a biblical reference.
well, I mean, it's a Daniel fast. A lot of people do that type of thing, yeah. But I'm not doing that. I'm doing only liquids, only a few different liquids, like a couple juices and broth and that kind of stuff.
So did you get like headaches the first few days and all that good stuff, or just?
So I already had been doing intermittent fasting, or that's just what I do, and so I don't eat. I eat pretty clean. I don't eat a ton already, and I don't eat a lot of sugar. So I wasn't expecting it to be bad, but you'd be surprised. Yeah, so I got headaches after the second or third day. I've done this 3 years in a row now, but like about the second day, the third day for me is always the hardest. It's when you get headaches and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And but even with eating, one or so meal a day, your body's still addicted to these different substances and things that are in them.
We should do an upcoming episode on your health or your
Yeah.
taking care of yourself or different techniques,
Oh man,
how it affects your business. Because I think it is so connected.
I believe in it so much. I don't know whether we talked about it before. I feel like we should talk about it right now.
We touched on it.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's essential. I think like I've got a few friends, a few mentors that were pro athletes and coaches and things, and it struck me years ago that if you're a pro athlete and your job is to use your body then that way, so obviously then you think, okay, of course that type of person has to stay healthy and like strong and all this kind of stuff and
Yep.
and train hard. But everyone else is just like, a lot of people think, oh, my job just is this. I don't need to do that. But your mental clarity, your ability to deal with situations, your physical energy is all tied to how you train. And I believe you should train like you're a pro athlete. And I think that affects your business and your entire life so much.
I agree.
I mean, I work out midday, and I've found that now I will, if there are problems that arise, I'll deal with those problems after the workout because the problems change like magic in the middle of the workout. Like just your perspective on it. It's so amazing and crazy. And so I might be anxious about something going into a workout. I'll leave the workout feeling confident about it in a different way. It's just, so anyway, if you don't do that, do it. We should do an episode on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nutrition, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and we're still going to get with Brad on his financial.
And we're still waiting for him to give us those stock tips. And
I think he's holding them close to vest.
In 2020, guys, I dropped a lot of little Easter eggs, and you guys didn't pick up on them.
Go back and listen to them.
Go back and listen. And this is not investment advice, of course, but you were, like, your tips were hot. They were spot on.
Yeah, the Bitcoin tip you gave us.
I gave you guys
a few weeks ago. I wish I would have listened.
I gave you guys some tips off air over the summer.
Yeah.
And I asked if you guys bought any, and you said no. I said okay.
There's one in particular that you gave me, and I didn't. And I had it literally on my to-do list, like to kind of research this stock. And by the time I got it, it exploded.
Oh, you know what though? Everyone's a financial genius this past year.
That's so true.
Because it was, you could just do anything.
So true.
I took your stock tip, if you remember, about a month ago. Thank you, by the way.
Organic foods and meats. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can buy me a coffee or something.
No, I can buy you these two.
Oh, yes. No, that is, I mean, financial awareness and all that kind of stuff is so key in life, of course, and in business. And actually, you talk about a lot how your finances are all tied together. Like you don't separate your business and your life. You really want the holistic thing to work well.
Yeah.
And your business is one aspect of that. And that's really been interesting to me as I've chewed on that. And so, yeah, if you run or lead a business, but guess what, your life is a business, like you've got to kind of have some acuity in the financial world and investing. And if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read that. I mean, that's so simple, but yeah.
Well, why don't we talk today, guys, a little bit about what we were talking about before the show started. And we've been touching on this the last few episodes, and I think we should go a little bit deeper. I know I've been thinking about it. We've been talking about it. And if we had our crystal ball, I think we all would love to kind of see what's going to change in 2021, because it's a year of change for sure. And go back and listen to our episode where we all kind of gave our words for the year. But as agency owners that work at agency, as business owners, whoever you are that's listening to this podcast, I think there's some things that in our opinion, you need to be thinking about. And one of these things we talked about a few episodes back was how we market our expertise, and specifically things like the reliance on certain platforms that may or may not be around. We were half joking, especially Brad and I, the old guy sitting at the table, when the days before Facebook, what did we do and how did we market? And Ken, you brought up a good point. I think maybe we could jump off. This is a good jumping off point is, as agency owners, there's so many agencies, quote, agencies and marketing individuals and solopreneurs that are really, really good at Facebook ads. But does that make them an agency? Does that make them a good marketing service to their clients? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Maybe your thoughts on that?
I think we should. Yeah, if you listen, I think over the last year or so, we've said several times that, the risk of getting caught up as being, a platform company agency. And now it's, it was less realistic that anything would change then. If you really looked at it, I've always thought that it would. I think there's a lot of risks in being a platform company, even if that platform is doing really well. But now I think we have to look forward and really consider, what does it mean for these platforms to either go away or at the very least, lose some of their effectiveness in how easy it is to advertise. And I don't know that a lot of people, even with all the, some of the things that are happening, I don't know that a lot of people are really considering that. I still get on calls with people where they're like, our strategy is run Facebook ads for 3 years and then see what's up. Like, it's a cool strategy. I don't think people realize that risk, but I think that, in my opinion, as agencies and as any business, the digital marketing landscape is going to change, right? It's going to be disrupted either now, either this year, next year, the year after. Like, it's not going to keep going up, because we know one of the fundamental rules of the universe is that it's in cycles. So things, go in seasons, and I don't think anyone would say that you can't see that in where the trend. It's got to come back down. And now you see things like Apple's new OS, where it blocks tracking or some of the privacy stuff that it has in it, which I think is actually really good. And you see some of the issues with maybe the legal challenges with some of these platforms, and then you see, just the fact that these platforms are overcrowded and the cost is going up. And
they shut your account down with no questions asked.
Yeah, the risk being reliant on that. There is so much, in my opinion, vulnerability. We are, as an economy, a digital economy, addicted to certain platforms, to where if they didn't exist, our business wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that I don't think it's easy to get off of that, but I think that businesses, especially in the e-commerce world, that's where we play. I tell people all the time, and we're talking about it a lot now, because a lot of people that have e-commerce channels that are successful, if Facebook shuts them down, they're literally done. Like, they have very little traffic without buying it, and so really telling people, like, look, we need to figure out how we break that addiction. It's not going to be easy. It really isn't. It's
funny
hard.
You should say that. I was doing an audience analysis last night for a client, and I was looking at a live stream that they had done on Facebook, and then uploaded and then of course the video was there, and they had something like 300,000 engaged. It was a really good amount for this individual who was doing. It was a music related thing, and at any one time they had 10,000 simultaneous viewers, which on a Facebook stream is really good, to have that many simultaneous viewers. But then I went and did an analysis of his website, and for a 90-day period, he only had 3,000 visitors. And it was just so out of balance. And basically saying this individual is totally reliant on this platform that he doesn't own, that he doesn't have full control of, and that he's betting all his livelihood on, that his own thing that he does control is producing hardly any traffic at all, minimal, a few hits a day. But yet he can go on Facebook and get hundreds of thousands of views, but you're right. That could change. Anytime.
You really want to own the platform,
right.
And you not the digital platform, just the platform that your business is speaking from, or that you're on,
and supplement it with these other things.
And you want to supplement it. I think that in my mind, diversity is a big is basically the answer to how you stay resilient. Usually, it's the more diversified you are, the less susceptible you are to changes, and
adapt. We were talking
and adapt.
Talking earlier. There was a time in the early days of Facebook where everybody's Facebook account had a @facebook.com email address, and everybody had a user ID behind that, and so you could get third-party tools that converted those. So you could go out and scrape, quote, Facebook IDs and user IDs by the hundreds of thousands of millions if you knew how to do it. And then Facebook would let you upload that to their custom audience, and you could create custom audiences. And everybody was like, this is gold, this is great. And then they turned that off and said, you can't scrape or upload user IDs. We won't recognize them anymore. And then everyone's like, Facebook is dead. Facebook advertising is dead. And then people had to get good at actually targeting and advertising. Right. And now we've forgotten about those days. And now we need to really thinking about, I think it exposes us. Don't you think, Brad? It exposes who we are as marketers. And we always have to be thinking what value, if we're the experts and customers or clients are coming to us, really, what are we offering them?
My concern for maybe younger people growing up in this industry is that they may have not had the opportunity to do more large-scale, multi-channel campaigns, and that's really when you cut your teeth and learn about marketing. You know what's working, the messages, and so if you're on a single platform and and that's all you do, I think that can be challenging if that platform in 2 or 3 years starts to diminish. And I think you can learn marketing chops that I think a lot of marketers are not really marketers; they're just more implementers,
Yes.
and that's fine. And that's we do that, and our agency does that too. But I think the strategic side of thing could get diminished a little bit because I think that people just don't have the wealth of experience sometimes in agencies anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at least be aware of it.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think a lot of us are guilty of it. Some more than others, but we've become, platform manipulators. Yeah. Platform manipulators more than marketers, right? Like I think a lot of agencies and even companies have gotten to the point where they don't realize it, but they're basically their goal. Like it's funny because anytime that Facebook account isn't producing, and we do a ton of Facebook advertising too. So like, I'm not saying don't do it, but anytime it's not producing, like the first thing everyone looks at is, well, do we have the right targeting in Facebook, or do we like have the right optimizations chosen? And like, what about the ad type? Is it like, and it's easy because like there's so much there to manipulate, but like the truth is like, shouldn't the first question be like, is our message resonating with an audience?
Yeah.
Right. Like, because in fact, if you do that, and this is obvious, right? But if you do that well, like it doesn't matter what the tools are, in some way, like a great message with the right audience will resonate no matter what. Right.
Yeah.
Or very easily. And so we've almost flipped it. And I think even for some, we're so addicted to how easy it is to manipulate. You can get results with bad marketing because you can manipulate them, or you could for a while, that we don't even know how, or I think some may not even be aware. Like how do you step back? Like how do you step back from that? Like how do you actually become? You got to become like an advertiser, a marketer, and like a strategist.
I have a quote I want to share with you guys, and Brad, you may have heard this quote, but do you guys know who David Ogilvy is? He's kind of the
Yep.
It's who David Ogilvy. He's Confessions of an Advertising Man. That book written in 1963. A lot of people say that Mad Men was fashioned after a lot of his persona and a lot of his agency, and but he was really like the early guru when it comes to advertising and marketing. This is a quote from his book in 1963. And I think it's interesting, and it's applicable to our conversation. He says, as a practitioner, I know that television is the most potent advertising medium ever devised, and I make most of my living from it. But as a private person, I would gladly pay for the privilege of watching it without commercial interruptions. Morally, I find myself between the rock and the hard place. I think that's an interesting quote of someone who says, look, I make my money on ads and advertising, but I also know that myself, and I think what he's saying is most people at that time would pay extra not to be advertised to. And I don't think that's changed in the mindset of people. And so what that speaks to me is in a globally fragmented world that we're entering in, and in 2021 even more than ever with what's happening with streaming now and cutting cable cords, and whether it be Hulu or Netflix or on and on and on, we can go down the list. At what point will people just say, enough's enough, and there's so many messages, they just tune everything out. I don't think we're at that point yet. But what it speaks to for me as a marketer, as an advertising person, is I've got to be really, really good at my craft.
Yeah.
That I can communicate, sell, and speak on behalf of a client without relying exclusively on paid advertising. And I think that's the exercise that we really need to be thinking about for ourselves is how can we bubble up and tell really, really good stories? How can we be really, really good communicators? And in a world where maybe Facebook did go away, maybe Google did go away, would we still be able to bring value to our clients? And if our answer is, I don't think I could, then you need to change that.
Absolutely.
Figure out how,
Right.
how you might,
Right.
and how
Yeah.
could you?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I was watching actually literally last night on, Masterclass, you know, that site. We got a subscription there because I just think sort of,
Yeah, they had a big sale going on, didn't they?
well, it's a really, I mean, it's a side note, it's a really cool platform. I think everything's going that way. So it's sort of like, kind of like research and development kind of thing,
High quality.
but it's so high quality. It's like more like entertainment while you learn. And so that's a different topic, but one that I'm very interested in and we're pushing on. So, but I was watching, there's a class on how to advertise by Jeff Goodby and Rich Silverstein. They're like famous
Agency guys.
and they did like Got Milk, you know, like I remember like they did the William Burr commercial. I remember it was like, so they changed. I mean, it's, you know, it's just brilliant stuff because they, you know, people were trying to sell milk, and I think the tagline before that was like "milk does the body good" or something like that, and everyone knew that, but no one really cared. It didn't resonate, didn't make people buy, and so they were trying to figure out like what makes people buy milk, and you know, they figured out that the only time people want milk is when they don't have it. They literally put cameras in fridges that they had taken all the milk out and videotaped people reacting to not being able to find milk. It was interesting, and that actually launched the Got Milk kind of campaign. And they did a bunch of great commercials around that. But the point is so one of the things they said is that I thought was really interesting. They said that advertising is art serving capitalism. And you know,
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
what's interesting about that is you look at it and you say people don't want to be advertised to. And I know on Facebook, you know, I don't know, every ad that we put out, not every ad, but like
They don't want bad advertising.
They don't want bad advertising. Well, people don't want advertising. And so if they get advertising, they have to almost not know it's advertising, or at least enjoy it. It's the point. I mean, you know, a lot of people don't even know that Facebook is run by ads, because I get comments on ads saying, why are there ads? And, you know, from Facebook users and things.
Because it's free.
Because it's free. Hello. But anyway, my point is you have to have great ads. You have to have, and that comes with backing up from the platform itself. Now, you may say, no, I'm a platform practitioner. That's my role. Cool. If you're aware of that, great. And I think running your business that way is like, just run it with that awareness. But what I think is important is, as we go into these changes, just to kind of like maybe bring anchor what I'm saying is, as we're going into a lot of potential changes, I think people are there are a lot of people unaware that they're more platform manipulators and not really marketers.
That's good.
And, you know, if you're not creating an ad or a campaign that's just genuinely interesting and people want to watch, I mean, the Harmon Brothers revitalized the whole, you know, ad campaign thing, I think, because they started to make ads that people enjoyed watching, you know, which is not new. It's what, you know, they used to do.
Did you guys see
in the day.
that ad? I think it was from Germany. I should have sent it to you guys over the holidays, of the old grandpa who got the kettlebell out and he was preparing. Did you guys see that?
No, I didn't see that one.
I'll have to send it to you. It was like, it brings tears to my eye every time. There's this old guy, and it was viral. It went around and it got translated, but I think it was originally from Germany. It was about a 1.5 minute, 2-minute commercial. This old guy, first you think, you know, maybe he's homeless or something, but then you realize, okay, well, he lives in the back in this little house, and he gets up and he uncovers this box and he gets an old kettlebell out and a weight, and he could barely pick it up. And then you see him over time start to get stronger. And then, you know, every morning he's lifting it and he gets stronger, and he lifts it from down between his legs up to his chest. And then you see him jogging in a jogging suit, and you're like, oh, this is like, get yourself back in. And the old lady next door is peeking over the corner, kind of laughing at him. You think, well, maybe he's getting fit for her or something. And then the last scene is you see him put a suit on. He's all dapper and he's in shape, and he knocks on the door next door. And you realize it's his daughter's house. And his granddaughter's there, and she comes to him with the star from the Christmas tree. And he had been doing this whole thing so that he could lift her up from the ground to put the star on the Christmas tree. It was a brilliant commercial. It makes you cry. Anybody who has kids, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the best commercial I think I've seen in a long time. I don't even remember what the brand was. But
that's great. That's great advertising.
It's great advertising.
When you get these commercials,
great
you don't
advertising.
remember the brand.
Yeah, I mean, right.
I mean, there's great storytelling, but how do you connect that to the brand? Sometimes is hard. But
yeah, exactly.
That's just
it's like Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, it's like, oh, remember that commercial in Super Bowl? That guy did that. It was so funny. You know, who was it for? I don't remember.
And that's where search comes in, and they start searching for it, and they find the brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but no, I haven't seen that. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you
YouTube.
guys. It's great.
Yeah, going back to the to all the ads, do you guys find it? I find that YouTube is serving more ads to me while I'm watching videos. Do you find that or no? Like, I feel like I'm getting interrupted more and more, and then I get the paid plan.
There are some,
in my face.
I agree. More recently, I don't know of the change. I'd have to ask someone, but I do notice more ads. Yeah. More frequently.
I think they have more real estate than they know what to do with.
Would you guys purchase the ad-free package?
No, I don't think so. I like some of the ads.
Yeah, I like
honestly, sometimes on YouTube, like I say, more often than any other platform, like TV, even an ad will interrupt me. Because they have to try hard. See, that's the point, right? Like with YouTube, if you don't want to get a skip, you got to really try to grab someone.
Yeah.
So people are actually putting a lot of effort into it, and honestly, that effort's really good sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I like to learn from it, so I like to see what people are doing. So I keep the ad.
We're not the normal people that ask for that.
Yeah,
we like ads.
True.
But I think
sometimes it's just genuinely funny or something.
But I think though, from the content I'm trying to watch, I do get frustrated sometimes with the interruption.
Yeah.
A little too much,
especially on the streaming platforms. That really frustrate. Like Peacock lately, they're like, you can have Peacocks free if you subscribe to Comcast or Xfinity. Great, okay, but now
free with ads.
Yeah, but now I'm interrupted every time I don't want to watch an Office episode. I got to
watch an ad.
Go through 3 or 4 ads before a 30-minute episode's over. So that's a little frustrating, I think, and I think that's what Ogilvy is talking about here. Is like in an age where we're getting more and more control over our content that we consume, it's frustrating when we don't have that control.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you expect it when you're paying for television or television's free. You expect it when you, in the old days of cable, but when you cut the cords and you say, I'm going to buy YouTube TV, or I'm just going to watch everything on my smart TV, I think you get more frustrated.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get away from that. It's like you're going on vacation and all of a sudden everybody that you know is there. It's like, hey, that's not what what's my plan?
Back before cable came out, cable television, people would be like, I'm not going to pay for television. Mm-hmm. I grew up and I didn't have cable when I was young. We just had like 2 or 3 networks, ABC, CBS and NBC and PBS and some Canadian stations. I grew up in Detroit.
Rabbit ears.
Yeah. And, people are like, I'm not going to pay for television. And then boom, they're paying for television with cable and they're getting commercials at the same time. Today, I don't know. I think if we want to pay, I don't know that I guess we pay for cable and we get commercials all day long. But,
one of the early days of my agency, and Ken, you remember this, is we really tried to offer a service for word of mouth, boots on the ground, people out in the street. I know you did that quite a bit too in some of your early days of your agency.
A lot of grassroots campaigns.
Yeah, grassroots campaigns.
Street teams.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be a resurgence of that?
Man, I mean, I'm so glad you said that because, so what? And I think as a platform gets easier and everyone's on it, people don't work on those kind of things. Like we had to do that, right? Because it was necessary. Mm-hmm. Like you had to get creative. You had to think of, okay, we have a problem. How do we market better, right? And like, there is no Facebook. There's no magic ball where you can say, give me everyone that goes to the gym, and they get, or whatever. And so you had to get creative and build things. And now, as the more we've gotten addicted to these platforms, we haven't had to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's there's an opportunity. I think there is. I think it's really. I think we're going to need to do those things again. I just think that's like all those type of like creative marketing efforts that you actually just make from your scratch. I think we're resetting pretty soon, and we're going to need to do that. That's my personal opinion. I think the cool thing about that is that, is that there's an opportunity, because it won't be easy to do, and people will have to invest in it. But the people who invest in it and figure it out, will benefit from it, and I think that's huge for agencies and those people. But I do think there's a cliff. I feel like no one. I would be curious, like when it led up to, when advertising led up to digital advertising, was there a cliff of unawareness? I don't know that it's the same now. Like, it wasn't like television was going to go away, right? Like,
yeah, I think the challenge.
You know what I'm saying? Like right now, we're in a situation where like there could be not a ramp down. Like some people, they get their account shut off, they're done.
When digital hit, traditional folks saw digital as like billboards, because it was running banner ads on specific websites that hopefully had the demographic you were looking at. The targeting wasn't quite as defined as it is now with Facebook, where you can dial in so much more. And so it was kind of like television to some degree.
They were applying mass marketing principles to digital rather than direct.
Yeah, it wasn't
relationship building.
Yeah, it wasn't really until Facebook where we've had the opportunity to dial it even further and to really target it at extreme. And my concern with that is that some of these other platforms that are coming up, TikTok and even Snapchat, they still don't have that full ability. They have similar abilities, but they're still working on gathering user data and starting to, so the amount of targeting seems to be a little less, especially if you're very niche
and you
business.
may not be able to target like that ever again. Like, who knows with all the privacy things, right? And so I actually think that's a good thing. I think it's going to be a difficult time for a lot of people, but I think that ultimately that means that it, like, look, the harder it gets, I think the more craft you have to apply and figure out, and I think the more opportunity there is.
I mean, I agree with that too. Is that I think Facebook those features will start to diminish on Facebook. We've already seen that over the last 2 or 3 years with all the political stuff that they've taken away stuff that used to be really cool and helpful.
The targets.
Targets for marketing and less transparency and things. So I think that's going to be even greater just because of the privacy laws and things. So I think people need to this year to start thinking a little bit more out of the box and start to get their clients thinking about other types of mediums and channels that they could do as part of a concerted campaign, not just a Facebook campaign.
I actually think this new era is going to be harder to adopt than when it went from traditional to digital, because when it went from traditional to digital, while people didn't understand it and they applied traditional principles, it was more powerful in like the way that or is technologically more powerful. And so you were sort of like just learning how to use it. I think what we're coming to is a situation
everyone has it.
We're gonna, I think it's going to revert back to where it's like we're getting less. There's less knobs we can twist. There's less that we can do, and so it's not as much learning a new platform as much as it is learning how to advertise again, or learning how to do business differently.
Well, everything comes in cycles, like you said. You just have to remember that what's old is going to be new again, whether it be cars, whether it be fashion, and as you get older and live more years, you look back and you go, oh, I was wearing that same thing back 30 years ago. Oh, we did that back then. You're not original because so-and-so wrote that same song. Yeah. And some of that is just like, okay, dad, whatever. Okay, boomer, right? But then the other side is, well, yes and no. What you're seeing is everything comes in this. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So like you said about word of mouth marketing, street teams, the key is, I think, the key to winning there is everything comes back around, but it has a new, slightly different twist. So if you can go back and study the masters, go back and figure out, oh, maybe I need to create a real world meetup group. It's not going to look the same way it did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. How can I integrate technology? How can I integrate that new twist? Just like fashion, just like art, when it comes back around, they're not wearing the exact same things. It's very, very similar, but there's a slight new twist to it. And I think that new twist is what separates us as experts, from other people who are just trying to reinvent the wheel.
I think it's important to know the difference between like the actual, advertising message and the medium too, because I think they get kind of intertwined, That's what we've been talking about this entire time, because I think, what is sticking around and what's probably going to get stronger, in my opinion, is email. Mm-hmm. And we go heavy on that because I just think that, some people think it's kind of old, whatever, but you own it. Right. As much as you can own anything, you own that. And you can have a conversation, and there's not really many restrictions, regulations, those kind of things. Like it's like sending a letter to somebody, it's just digital. But still, like email is not going to work unless you have a really good message, right? So I think that it's important to kind of know the difference there. But I just think as agencies, we need to be aware of the landscape, and I really think that it's changing. I think that's going to create some hard time, because I think the truth is, like, things are going to stop working. They already are stopping work. I mean, like this Q4, December is we had one of the it was one of the most expensive months ever to advertise on Facebook. We did it for a lot of brands, and it's not just us. We're part of lots of different kind of exclusive peer groups, and it was expensive for everyone. And ultimately, it's just getting more expensive. It's getting harder to get results, and so we really need to say, I think we're going to have a gap where people are caught by surprise. Mm-hmm. It's not working, and I think it's going to be hard for a period of time. But I do think we need to be kind of getting in front of it right now. Here's what I think, though, is like, and I'd love to know your opinion, is like, why do you think that, we're not focusing on advertising, and we're not focusing on the message and creating great entertainment, that kind of thing from the majority?
Because we're lazy.
Well, I think because we're lazy.
Expensive.
Yeah, I think it costs.
I think this whole thing with marketing arbitrage is like people just want to put money where they can measure the results and get the best results. They're not thinking long term. They're not thinking long term for their brand. A lot of times, they're just thinking direct response. Can I sell something right today on my website? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great model. But I think if you're building a brand, especially a long term brand that's going to be around 10 years, we're going to see things change. Like there's going to be technology where people are going to be spending more time, idle time, and there's going to be other models for advertising. For instance, the autonomous vehicle. There's already so much development in car advertising. For instance, they're doing stuff right now in technology with vehicles that when you pass certain places, it shows up ads. So if you're 3 miles from a Panera is going to have an ad showing on your screen, and it helps subsidize some of the cost of the vehicle. So we're going to see some other ad platforms show up that we never even dreamt of 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And we have to be prepared to start to play in those games. And, we talked earlier about offline, about voice, and how, voice probably this year is probably going to grow stronger.
Voice search. I mean, how many people listening to this have some sort of voice search in their home, whether it be a Google Home, whether it be Alexa, whether it be talking to Siri? That is a normal part of our life, and will only continue to grow.
Just so you know, I don't talk to Siri. She doesn't answer me most of the time.
She doesn't like you.
It's a one-way conversation.
Like me.
Yeah. And that's just kind of flying quickly under the radar. And I think marketers need to be aware of that, because every time someone in their home talks to the device, it goes to a search engine and gives them the results. Well, why aren't you optimizing just like you do SEO, just like you optimize your website, your content marketing? You need to optimize that for voice search, which is very, very unique and different than what you type in on your phone or on your laptop. It's very different. It's very different. When you type in, I'm sitting in my car. I say, Chinese restaurant near me. I don't say that to my voice device.
Right.
I say, hey, Google, can you give me the highest rated General Tso's chicken in Franklin, Tennessee? I usually do something like that. And so it's just rethinking those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the reasons why those don't get used right now is because I think agencies and businesses, like you said, are addicted to ROI.
Yeah.
Literally addicted to ROI. Like for the longest time, it's like, no, I spend $1, I get $2. So why would I not do it? Why would I do anything that's less than that?
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of short-sighted and naive in a lot of ways, because it means you don't invest in other areas, and it's something we've talked about a lot. But I think that's one reason. I think the other reason is like the reason people don't figure out voice and figure out and do better creative and create better advertising and just figure this stuff out is because I think that it's been a race to the bottom for a lot of agencies on price, right? Because it's been, and I think a lot of agencies find themselves in a place where they can't invest any additional profit into figuring out other platforms if you'd market. I'm assuming. I mean, right?
Well, a great example is,
or you can't create great creative, right? Because I manage your ad account, but I'm not going to make a video because that's like.
Yeah, well,
expensive.
a great example on this on this voice search thing is, for 150 years we've been relying on visuals, sight, people's eyes, right? Well, what if all visuals went away? So right now we create ads, we create good visuals, we create good art, good color, good, whatever it may be, because we assume people sit down on their phones, on their computers, and they see those Facebook ads or those Google ads. Well, now we're entering a world where I can go, if I'm home on a weekend, I may turn my phone off, and the only interaction I have with the internet is through voice search, right? Or through streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when will those click-through rates and those ads start being fed into those voice? And are we prepared to give good ad copy and rank for that and create just as good ad copy as we do visuals or attention-grabbing ads? So those are things that we need to be thinking about, because, like I said, it's circling back around again. Now all of a sudden we're going back to pre-television, to the radio days, right? Where you had to come up with the best copy that moved people psychologically without any visuals. And that's something that we need to be thinking about as well.
It's a really good point.
Yeah, a lot of changes. Again, I think like 5 years from now, we'll look back and I think Tesla may have an ad platform down the road. I wouldn't be surprised. Like if I could go in there and buy ads and serve it to everyone who drives and has a certain profile, while they're in their car cruising down the expressway autonomously while they're reading the book and stuff like that. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more avenues for self-service ads on different platforms, and it wouldn't surprise me in 5 years if like Tesla had an ad platform. It just wouldn't surprise me.
So what should you do? What should agencies do? What should businesses do right now?
I think they need to be thinking outside the duopoly of Facebook and Google, and keep perfecting your skills there, but don't become exclusively reliant on it, because there's a whole world of other opportunities out there, and just start exploring them and finding out, how can I build my email list? How can I look at these other platforms?
There's times where you really, like for me personally, like I've suggested to some clients to do a direct mail campaign, and they kind of look at you like, isn't that old? Like, isn't that expensive? And I'm like, well, yes and no. It's more expensive, but if we can do it in a smart way where we only send it to certain people through, like, there's a lot of APIs now that you can send automated direct mail based on a certain criteria of your funnel, and you could still see a good response, from it. It's worth it. And so I think just challenging your agency, trying not to, like you say, pigeonhole into the two platforms, but rather think out of the box a little bit, think a little bit more about how you can create human touch outside of Facebook, and almost challenge yourself. Like, how could we create human touch for our client's brand outside of Facebook and Google? And I think that it'll help you think a little bit more and bring some new ideas in. And you might even be surprised that some of these tactics, if you tested them, they might actually bring some results that are favorable. And you just start building more of a diversified campaign versus a very narrow campaign.
I mean, I think businesses and agencies need to more than start thinking about other things, like start investing and figuring these out. I think first thing is you got to break your addiction to ROI. And I say that often, but I think that is the truth. I feel like it is literally an addiction. There's a cash cow that's been around and it's not producing as much cash. And so I think it's hard to get clients over that. Like, you have to work hard to get clients over that, because like you said, Brad, you said, you suggested direct mail just now, to a client, and they said something about, how do we know it's going to work, or you can't really track it. You can't. I think we have to break that. Like, for the longest time, we've been able to track everything, and we should track absolutely whatever we can. But, we're probably going to come into a time where you're not going to be able to track as much, and you're going to have to take a risk. And I think agencies and businesses and business community have moved away from the risk that they probably should take, that people used to take, and you've gotten into this, like, there's no risk. Like, I spend $5 a day, and like, I can shut it off anytime I want. Like, that actually is great. But as that goes away, the only thing you can do is like create and understand your customer and do research studies and those kind of things. But then there's like a certain amount of risk that you have to put into it. I think you got to be ready
I would
to
push
do that.
back just a little bit and say, where there is not a way to measure, I think the good marketers figure out ways to measure.
Totally.
And I just
don't think it's handed to you on a silver platter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you can measure ROI, or however you want to say it, indirect mail, but you just got to, that's the value that I think clients pay you. And if you can figure out creative ways to do it. So for instance, when we used to do word of mouth street teams, we invested time and resources into building a measurement platform where everybody that was participating on the street team had to go in, they had to upload photos of what they did. We would award them points. And at the end of the day, we could spit out a report to the client and say, when they said, well, how was my money spent? And how do I know how do you measure word of mouth? You could say, here's this book of reports that says everybody that signed up, here's pictures of them putting your posters, here's pictures of them, reposting, here's pictures of them doing this, and then here's when they did it, and here's a link if you want to go verify that image or whatever it may be. So I understand what you're saying. I just think that we need to find those areas that maybe aren't clear and measurable and figure out ways to measure them. Would you agree? Or
Absolutely. I think everything should be you should try to measure everything. I'm not saying that. I just feel like sometimes we don't take those risks that actually build brand equity. And I think that's a lot of problems with brands, is that they just want a quick return on their investment, and their long-term brand equity, they're not doing much. And sometimes you're not going to see the results in some of the spend, and when you're trying to build a brand, but they all work in conjunction with each other. And eventually you can, you'll see the results of your efforts. It could take it could take a couple years to see the results. But I think that's the challenge. I think that's a challenge with any business, because we're just like, we work quarter to quarter. Like, we just got to get the numbers for the quarter, and then I'm good. Because how many people do you know in a job? Like, let's take a marketing director. How long are they typically at their job? Probably about 2 years, and then they move on, because that's the only way that they get raises. The only way there's not a lot that loyalty where employees are loyal to their companies a lot of times. And if you're working with somebody who's leading a marketing campaign for a brand, and they're only there for 2 years, that's really not enough to. It's a short-term vision. And so a lot of times you're working under that short-term vision as an agency.
You're saying it's actually like it's almost impossible to get them to think of anything past that term.
They're just
which
they're
is,
just trying to
really interesting. Yeah,
trying to
You're
show
right.
their value within 3 months. They live quarter to quarter,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's how the financial world works too. So we live in a quarter by quarter thing, and you have to have somebody who values values their brand and thinks more long term.
And I think too, Ken, what you said earlier was important because I want to clarify is that return. What you're talking about is dollar in, dollar out, versus putting a real value and potentially a dollar value on these other things that aren't immediate returns, i.e., brand awareness, share of voice.
They may not even be explicitly trackable.
Right.
Like we may be able to say, well, yeah, we know that this action happened, but we now, the onus is more on us or the business
What's the
owners
value of that?
to say, like, yeah, how does that translate to dollars?
Right.
Did it translate to dollars? And I think that's where experience and strategy comes in. So I think it's ultimately a really exciting thing. As much as I like all the easy stuff, I think it's an exciting thing when it's like, okay, things are probably going to get a little harder, or maybe even a lot harder.
You know what I think?
You got to figure it out.
You know what I think?
We have to innovate.
The easiest solution to this topic that we've been talking about the last few minutes, and we've talked about this before, and maybe we should have a whole show on it, is getting your clients to understand what the true lifetime value of their customer is. Then you've got the freedom and a much bigger playing field to play on, to know exactly, because then it frees you from that immediate ROI, because then you can say, well, if I know the lifetime value is X, I have this much to work with. And actually these other things can play into that, developing them, extending the lifetime value, things like that. We should do a whole show on that.
I love that idea. I mean, we talk about that a lot, and sometimes I think I mentioned this before. It really depends on your client. Like, we work with a lot of startups, and if you ask them what their lifetime value was, they wouldn't be able to tell you because they haven't been around long enough to even measure that. And even if a company's been around for a few years, most of them haven't even thought that way. They're not thinking, what's my lifetime value? They're just thinking like their month-to-month revenue. And so I think that's a great thing to do. I think we should try to bring on people who've actually been around that, like a brand manager or something. That would be fun to see what they say about it and pour into the conversation, because I think as agencies, we all do that, like with our clients, but how do we get the clients to think that way? How do we get your clients to think more long-term? And I think that's the challenge is, if you have a very short-term client who wants to make a buck, like sometimes Facebook is the right move for them. It's going to give them results, or maybe we're going to be able to find that some information based on our ads by A/B comparisons to understand which messages are really working better. And so we use Facebook all day long as our focus groups almost, to try to get information about which messages work, which ones are, we refine, which I think is great. It's a great platform to learn about a new brand as well. But you can't stop there. You got to diversify. You got to get on other channels. You got to think long term. You got to think about brand equity. You got to think about the story and how the story is going to play out of your brand over years. Like, what's the story? And what's a 5-year story of your client's brand? Like, what journey are their characters on, their personas, their customer personas, and what persona does their brand have, and how do you manipulate that brand?
That's good.
I think once you start playing that game, and not where you kind of like, you step back, and I think you see a lot of opportunity once you start playing that game of understanding what message is going to connect with the person and not really worrying about the medium.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the fear of like things going away gets diminished a little bit.
Exactly. I always look at big brands and I kind of shake my head, and I don't know, I maybe don't have the data to support this, but I look at like Chick-fil-A versus like Kentucky Fried Chicken and what Kentucky Fried Chicken has done in their brand, their story. They don't have a story. They diminished their story. Their story used to be, this 11 herbs and spices, and it was the heart of the founder and all that stuff. And Colonel Sanders, and now they make fun of them, and they're different characters, and they're engaging ads. I'm not saying they're not engaging. They're maybe kind of funny, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make me really want to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Are they just trying to do name recognition?
I can't tell you the last time I ever went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I don't want to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, but if you think about like Chick-fil-A, there's a story that's meaningful there. and they support that in their service, right? So it's I always say a brand is a promise, but a great brand is a promise kept. And I think that's the key with like those kind of things. If you're a brand and if you're branding, if you're doing ads, the best thing to do is keep that promise. You're making a promise, so keep it and make sure that you show up on the other side, so that when someone does use your service or product, that they go, yeah, this is exactly what I was sold, and they met it.
And I mean, if you don't think your brand can get brand loyalty because, I only have a product that is this, or I only do this, look at Chick-fil-A. I mean, they sell fast food chicken, and they've created like fans. It's I look at that all the time, and I analyze that. One of our kind of core principles is creating fans of brands.
Yeah.
We're in Nashville, and I used to be in bands and music and that kind of stuff. And like in bands, you have fans. You don't have sales, but you have fans. But brands rarely have fans. They have sales, and so. But the good brands, the great brands, the ones that actually can transcend and be really successful, have fans. And like, sometimes you wonder like, my product doesn't, have enough to create brand loyalty. I mean, look at Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Chick-fil-A, it's fast food chicken. Who would have thought like going into that, being like, I can make a fan out of this thing?
Yeah, well, they have a good
crazy
product first of all, but it's all about customer service.
Yeah,
it's like
the story and really enforcing that and having like true purpose and all
you
that.
take restaurant quality customer service and waiting into a fast food environment.
And they invested hard.
Yeah.
Their technology. Like when I go to Chick-fil-A, that line moves so fast.
It does.
Everyone that takes my order with an iPad, I'm like, I got to hire that person because they are awesome.
And they're 14 years old.
I know.
Doing it.
I mean, and so think about it. Like, is there an easy road to get there?
My pleasure.
Yeah. Is there an easy road to get there? No. They had to invest in building. That app that they use in the new Chick-fil-A, like now it's like a lot of different people have it, but like they had to build that from scratch, invest tons of money into that, their service and support, and then even just like their management program and all that kind of stuff. I know people right now, I think they have a management class or something like that, like to be kind of mentored to be a Chick-fil-A manager, and it has it has a waiting list, and it's really hard to get into a fast food restaurant. All I'm saying is like it took them having a vision and investing in that vision, and I think that's something to take away.
I would love to see the lifetime value of a Chick-fil-A customer.
I don't know.
Oh, right.
Is that even measurable?
It's gotta be pretty good. It's infinite.
Well, guys, this was good. Really good stuff. I'm excited about this year, and it's good to be with you guys again. So if you are enjoying Agency Exposed, please like and follow. And hopefully by the time you hear this, our YouTube channel will be live.
Yeah, we'll have a YouTube channel up. So, look at us if you want to see what this looks like. You
just
can kind of
search it up on Agency Exposed on YouTube.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Till next time.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.